our conversation this morning. And so now at about 11 minutes after 8, we're moving into that conversation. Professor Kivutha Kibwana is here with us this morning. Good morning, Prof.
Asante sana. Good morning, Du.
How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I wish I could be doing better. Many Kenyans are not doing okay, and I'm one of them.
This is true. And I think you're going to let us into that as to why the state of the nation is the conversation that we're having this morning. So we thank you for doing that with us today, because one of the things that we try to do in this room is to have an open, honest, raw as it is conversation, because what that does is that it spurs people on to thinking, and hopefully that thinking will be spurred on towards an action. And so that you do this with us this morning, I think is of the utmost necessity and importance. And so thank you for doing that. As you know, Dennis takes us around the African continent. Every week we come from a different country with the proverbs. We'd love to get your interpretation.
And today we're in Gabon, a country that is rich. You talk about a nuclear reactor that every country wants to have. Gabon has one that is just natural. God just gave it to them like that. It's being explored. One would hope that if everything goes well, it would be the first country to use a natural nuclear reactor to produce power. But let's go to the proverb. To one who does not know, a small garden is a forest. To one who does not know, a small garden is a forest. How would you interpret it?
Well. I think any soil, if you apply yourself to tending it, can really give you very good results. So that you might think that this small garden is not really much, but people have a quarter acre and they do great things. They do their vegetables and they can make quite a bit of money. But also, when if you are to study, what is in that soil, and it can be very complicated. What kind of nutrients are there, what kind of soil it is, and all that. So it is also as complex as a forest. So I think that Gabon saying is very rich.
Very rich. Well said, well interpreted.
Indeed.
Yeah.
The state of the nation, from your point of view, Prof, this morning, what is the state of the nation?
Sorry?
What is the state of the nation from your point of view this morning?
The state of the nation. We are not doing well at all. And I think even today, as the prices have really gone high of fuel, and those who, kind of help us in the private sector to transport us from home to work and back to home and everywhere, they have decided that these fuel prices are just too high. And it's not clear why they should be so high in our country, when in countries that we think are not doing as well economically, like even Burundi, Kampala, that is Uganda, Tanzania, somehow their fuel prices are lower than in our country. So even on that aspect alone, one can say that the immediate future doesn't look very good. So one must say that we are not doing very well. And when you inflict such high prices on your people, it is as if the government is a sadist. It doesn't really understand when people are hurting, when people require reprieve. So it's a distant government. It is as if it doesn't stay in Kenya. So, and this is just one aspect. If, of course, you go to other aspects, like you go to the health aspect, you go to education, you go to, there is hardly anything that you can say the government is doing right. And so, as a Kenyan, and as far as all other Kenyans are concerned, really we are in a bad state.
It is interesting that you say this, because just a week ago, actually today, a week ago today, and then going into Tuesday, African countries came together towards the Africa Forward Summit. And it seemed as though at the end of that, there was a lot of euphoria in terms of where Africa is going, whether or not there was another, person in the room. But can you have forward-moving continents with such public dis-ease as is currently being faced in Kenya? I mean, we're talking about this morning, today, a real situation, not conjecture or fantasy. It's real that today people can't go to work, schools are closed, children have stayed home. But we are moving forward, Africa-wise. Can we put the two together?
Are we going forward as Kenya, as the continent? It is very worrying that we are not still able to do things for ourselves, that we have to rely on, foreigners, foreign governments to come and kind of tell us what is best for us and what we should do. And, after that meeting, forward-looking, backward-looking, after that meeting, immediately something happens which jolts us when we think that, there was something about going forward. Then we have this a backlash. So it's very ironical for that to happen. And, we remember vividly the leader of France on that stage, forgetting that he's in Kenya and he's not the president of Kenya, and actually telling, some of those African heads of states and so on to kind of shut up, which is very indicative of what really, I think that was also God sent in terms of telling them, that's what we think about you. Our AU, with the African Agenda 2063, I think that the kind of leadership that we have, most of the leadership across Africa, has really failed us, with a few exceptions. And they have not been able to reimagine Africa, to reimagine what can be done so that Africa takes its pride of place. We are told the 21st century is our century, but there isn't any indication from the leadership that they are working towards that. And I think that's why there is significant push by younger people, to reclaim their continent and hopefully be able to begin to reinvent it, to reimagine it, so that we also are on the world stage. Because as of now, we are just a place where, whether it is China, whether it is USA with Europe, wherever, they just come here for raw materials, particularly the rare earth minerals. Now people want those. So it's a question of them just using us as a footstool, so to speak. And so I think we need, particularly the young folks, they need to really rethink where is this continent, going, like those of the leaders at independence, the Nkurumas, those, Lumumbas, those leaders were, Kaundas, Nyereres. They were actually saying, where do we want to take Africa? And even the idea of Pan-Africanism and all that. And that has been lost. So we have leaders who are not leaders.
Professor, you speak about the independence leaders, the Pan-Africanists that existed in the continent and their vision of where they wanted the continent to be at. And I want to relate that with what we see today, in the sense that we have leaders who, when they want to get elected, they literally come and beg Mwananchi and give promises that we will deliver. We look at where Kenya, for example, finds itself today, and one asks the question, the person who came begging for our vote seemingly has forgotten about the promises and what and why we gave them that vote. Many are saying they don't care about us today. Would Kenyans be right in thinking so?
I think, you see, it's almost like drama. Because it's a play, the play act that they are really going to do great things for people. They promise what a lot of our people would really want, have been waiting for. And because we haven't done a lot of civic or political education, and therefore our people on the whole have not been able to really distinguish when they're being told true things and when they're being played. And therefore there's a level of gullibility. People are considerably gullible. And when you have also the mix of ethnicity, when they get attracted to Mtuwetu, then, they vote actually without trying to understand, who is this person and what history does this person have. Is this somebody who in the past has been able to help us, move forward, So actually, a lot of us don't have votes because we are told by somebody who is supposed to be an ethnic king or queen. Mostly they are kings. We are told this is how you vote. So it is that person who is voting, not really us. So I hope the younger people will teach us that you need to really interrogate characters. They will teach us you don't just receive money and, 500 shillings, sometimes 1,000 shillings, I don't know, but 50, 100, 500, depending on, who you are. So I am just thinking that as we go to 2027, there's going to be some new thinking so that people are not simply lied to, they buy the lies, and they are able to, vote for people who have no history of helping anybody.
Prof, do you think that the current administration lied to Kenyans?
Well, because we were told that the people at the bottom of our society are going to be uplifted. And this was repeated ad nauseum, was repeated and repeated. It was like a song. When now the president, came to the position, it is like he forgot all those things that he had told people he was going to do. Therefore, it is clear that when he was promising all those things, he didn't mean them. Because if he meant them, he would be implementing them. So, again, it is my expectation that as people listen to those who will come to woo them, they will be very observant, they will think better, and they will do, what should be done, because otherwise our country actually risks collapse.
So if I tell you that I'm going to make gas 300 shillings and I don't do it, neither do I offer you an explanation as to why I did not, was I lying to you?
Of course, if you tell me that you're going to invite me here, and then you forget, and I come and sit there, and then eventually you come out and tell me that actually I didn't invite you, and yet you had, because I can't come here. When you have not invited me, unless something is wrong with my head. So it means you tell people, all those nice things that gas will be, almost free. And of course, those are the basic things. And therefore, people are likely to kind of believe you because they have problems with whether it is, gas, kerosene, and all that. So I think if, for example, as a father, I tell my children, my grandchildren, things that are not true, it means that they're not going to believe me again. And so when a leader tells his people that certain things will be done and they're not done, one must ask what is in the mind of that leader to think that they can tell people things that he has no he really will not want to fulfill them. And if he's not able to fulfill anything, you come back to the people and you tell them, these are the reasons why whatever we promised cannot happen. So, I mean, when one kind of sits down and reflects about this kind of leadership style, you know, one really, I think even in terms of the books that people research and write, it is not easy to find this kind of model.
I mean, Professor, you know, the promises that were given to Kenyans are things that Kenyans took to heart. Because I remember the time during the campaign period, there's also a line that was said, because at the time it was the Ukraine war. And it was said that the reason why fuel in Kenya is expensive is because of the taxes. And that once the president would get into power, President Ruto would get to power, he would address the problem and ensure that fuel prices go down. Today we see the complete opposite, which, as you've clearly said, he lied at that point, because what he did later, which was through legislation, we saw that fuel prices went up. But that notwithstanding, then, one looks at Kenyans, or how the political class views Kenyans. Are Kenyans so gullible that we are not able to read the room? Or is it the inverse, that the political class do not read the room and understand where Kenyans are, and that Kenyans will just take anything that is thrown at them?
Well, sometimes people are desperate. And if they are experiencing a very bad situation, the next person who comes along and tells them that I am now able to make them better,
the Messiah,
they kind of believe that one. Because that's what is on offer. And so they don't go into the history of those new people and ask, okay, what have they done? And therefore, what they are promising, are they able to do it? Because even as of now, when we talk about the opposition, they are still at a level where they are not committing and saying that this is how we are going to change things. But I would imagine a time will come when they will tell us, that. So yes, the political leadership across the board is very sophisticated, and they are able to yarn, very good narratives about what they will do, will happen, and all that kind of stuff. And because we have been in a bad situation, we kind of embrace, whoever comes and tells us that, we are going to change things. And particularly when they're very convincing, they say, we used to work with this guy, we know him, and therefore, we are telling you he's not good, and we know how to fix things. So I think we have to be more discerning. And that's why I'm saying, although we haven't done a lot of civic education, political education, I think the young people, that's one of the responsibilities, to be able to talk to Kenya and to talk to themselves and be able to say that we really are going to scrutinize people. We are going to ask them, what have you done since you got into politics? And even wherever else you were, what did you achieve? Because we can't afford to keep on having, leaders who cannot help us. And even as you make promises, you need to demonstrate to us how you will actualize them. Where is the budget? Who are the people who are going to help you do it? Because I remember like Kibaki, when he said, education was going to be free in the primary level, already he had asked people to do the maths and be able to know that I'm promising something that I can deliver. And so there are important things that Kenyans are waiting for. Like they are waiting for free health. I think they are waiting, not SHA, they are waiting for, free education. At least those two basic things, and they are doable because in other countries, they have been done. But then one has to tell us, where will you get the money from in terms of, will you, for example, minimize or do away with corruption, so that you can have the budget for what you promise. I think the promises must be real this time around.
How will Kenyans then be able to determine? Because one of the things you said is that when somebody has been in a bad situation, the next thing that comes round definitely looks a lot better than, what they've gone through. But how can you be sure that that which is being offered to you is the next best approach?
Well, I think, like what I said about discernment, it is like Kenyans getting to another level, because that happens in the counties, by the way. And that's why there's a lot of, about half the governors don't come back. Because the people are near them, and the people can kind of, feel them and realize what quality of leadership they're offering. And I think we need to upscale that to the national level, so that again, and I keep on emphasizing this question of what is your history? If it's politics, what have you done? Some of them were with Moi. So what did they do? How are you different from, the negative people within the Moi regime and all that? So, and of course, the media, if possible, can give us more information about, whoever it is who wants to, be a leader. And we have to listen carefully. And we have to really, discern. There's a lot of social media where people are discussing candidates and all that. But I am sure that without that kind of level of scrutiny, we may not get very far with whoever, the people that we think will supply the change that we need.
Prof, you've been around for a very long time, especially in the political class and law pretty much. And Prof, I would give an example in terms of the kind of leadership that Kenyans want to have. I'll take you back to the county where you served as governor, Makueni. And I visited there and I saw what you put up, the sand dam, and what that has done to the people and the locals there. When you banned sand harvesting, we've seen the change, especially in the topography, agriculture in the area. Today, you talk about the region, the food processing in Makueni, what you started helping farmers and the locals. One would say, when you look at what the professor did, it has helped the local communities for them to continue growing, which then the one who took after you has continued with what it is you started. Today, we talk about a country and aspirations that would be there. If given an opportunity, what kind of Kenya would you want to see, and how would you solve, one would say, the problems that you face today, especially around fuel crisis?
Well, I think like the mindset that I had when I went to Makueni was I was part of making the constitution. And therefore I knew what the constitution, said should happen. And of course, as a lawyer, I said to myself, we are going to implement the constitution simple. So if it is corruption, we are not going to accept that. Therefore, the resources that we have will be preserved and used for, the people. I knew about the poverty in the county. So one, said we are going to work to make sure that we change that. And we listen to these people, because if they feel that you are ready to listen to them, they're also creative. They will tell you, things that you should do together. For example, they said in terms of health, they actually told us that when we go to Kenyatta and we have to pay, sometimes we can't pay, and therefore, if somebody now dies, then we have to wait to raise, arambis and all that. And even within then, because in the level of hospitals in Makueni, they were also paying. So they said, this is a big issue. This is one of the issues we want you to solve. So I didn't know what the answer was, but there were professionals, because we believed in having people who really knew in each docket what should be done. So we put the issue to them, and they gave us a solution. They said that if every household pays 500 shillings, we are going to get the same sum of money as when people go and pay in the hospital, about 100 million. And then we add more. And we are able to now make sure that for 500 shillings, each household, they get, every treatment that, we offer, apart from a few things where they would have to subsidize. Like if it's, you want good teeth more than, you want some gold, you have to pay and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think if you go to leadership to serve, and if you will not accept, you will not, as the leader, condone corruption, so that others realize that this guy, and even if sometimes your friends who do wrong, you tell them that you can't stay here. We have come here to serve. So I think it's the mindset. If you go thinking that this is time to eat, then nothing will happen. Of course, you will eat, but then the people will not be served.
Yeah.
So I think even in the past in Africa, like young Thomas Sankara, they killed him, but within a very short period, he did things that were not, which were not happening.
Yeah.
In terms of, for example, getting kids immunized, getting women recognized, beginning to really revive that country of the upright people. So I'm just thinking that we need to get leadership that listens to the people, respects the people, cares for the people. I say sometimes that in this country, Kenyatta tried to be a father of Kenya, but in the later years, he kind of dropped that. Moi also tried to be a father of the nation, particularly before the attempted coup, and he dropped that afterwards. Kibaki actually, perhaps, and of course one can say I'm biased because, he was a mentor, I loved him, he was a father, but I think he tried to be a father of the nation so that people feel securer. Of course, the others, and of course he had his issues like every leader. Even when I was in Makueni, also I can't say that people did. Some people didn't criticize, say this and that. Huru was a buddy. You just he was a buddy, a nice guy. Now our current president. Maybe by the time we get to 2027 at the end of his term, I will make a comment about him. But for now, I reserve.
When we look at what and I keep saying that Kenya's problem today, right now, is a today problem, and that we talk about the macro economy in terms of the numbers doing well. But the microeconomy in terms of people's pockets is debilitating. It is not a good situation at all. And unfortunately, that is how people ascribe proper leadership. If I'm doing okay, if a Kenyan is doing okay at this point and is able to sort out 1, 2, 3, you ascribe that to good leadership. That's just how people mark or rate. That it is not doing well at the moment is an indictment on the position of leadership. Is it the person who's going to fix the economy that essentially is going to fix that problem for Kenyans?
Yes, they are intertwined. They are intertwined because if the economy is doing well, then that wellness must percolate to the very ordinary person, to the household. For example, even these fuel hikes are going to influence that ordinary person who, like, now has to pay more for transport, almost double, like boda, matatu, double. If it is food, if it is everything, because when you increase these fuel prices the way they have been increased, it affects, all aspects. If it manufacturing, people will be laid off and all that. So you see the majority of the people are at the bottom. And that is why whatever you do for the economy must translate into them being, secure. Here we don't have, like abroad, we don't have, like people are not employed, giving them a stipend every month. So when you travel, like in Nairobi and elsewhere, you find a lot of young people on the streets. They are hawking whatever really cannot supply a livelihood, and yet they have to do that to see how little they can get, for themselves. So that they are in that kadogo economy, they are in that hope economy, and that's really very punitive for the majority of the people. If that is how you will run a country, to marginalize, to decimate the majority of your population, including the young people. Even, I should say, especially the young people. The other day, a border guy gave me a ride. And at the end, he told me that he has done business administration. Mm-hmm. And that he will give me his paper so that I can help him. And I think I will, do that to see whether anybody is interested. So, and there are many of them with their degrees, who are doing that kind of stuff. So, you can have those huge, indicators, GDP and what. But sometimes one doesn't know whether, it's just manufactured figures to look like we are doing well. Because if we are not doing well at the bottom and doing well across, the businesses, are kind of collapsing. Many businesses are kind of collapsing, even of major private sector people. So I think at the end of the day, it is what you do so that the majority of your people have a livelihood, and you can see even in terms of happiness, the happiness index, and all that kind of stuff, which will tell you that your people are doing well.
The mark test of all of this at some point, because Kenya is a country that is ruled by the Constitution and that there are laws that must be followed, that you can take that public dissatisfaction and turn it into a decision at the ballots in the next process of an election, or you can actually push forth your sovereignty that you've delegated to members of parliament and say you need a change. The latter of those two is unlikely to happen because of certain processes that have not been put in place. But the most decisive action that Kenyans have at the moment is to go to the ballots in 2027 and make a decision essentially about their pocket, about their children, about school fees, about, health. That's what essentially you're making a decision about when you go to vote. Looking at what happens during politics is that still money is sprayed around. People think a position will be taken by how much shillings are in a pocket. Are Kenyans ready, from what you see, to make this decision about how the change will appear in their pocket at the ballot come 2027? Are people ready? And if they're not, what does it take to get them there?
Well, I think something that is happening, which is not good. It is like, all these problems relating the economy, like this fuel thing, the taxes, like the new finance bill 2026. Again, it has issues that the Gen Zs were against. If it is like taxes on digital, space, even like all cars having to be so that like how the lorries and the matatus were inspected, all cars to be inspected, many aspects which really are dumbfounding, because these are the issues that made the youth come to the streets, and one thought one would, and it was promised that they were not going to be repeated. So those things are negative and are hurting, but they're also positive to the extent that they are going to convince people that if you want to get out of this rut, then you need to be serious about what happens at the ballot.
Yeah.
And again, I think the young people are driving this message, and I think the middle class as well, because actually a lot of the middle class are going to, the working class. So that I think, in a way, all these negative things are going to tell people that, we can't tolerate this. Another 5 years of this, and, people will be beginning to ask, can I go to another country? And where do you go to? Tanzania has its problems, Uganda has its problems, Somalia has its problems. So where do you go, where do you go to? Abroad, they don't want immigrants a lot.
Yeah.
So I think it's this realization that we can't sink lower. But again, people have to be weaned from this business of this tribalism thing, because that confuses people. And of course, some of the leaders think that if I give people money, if they are poor and I give them money, they will do what I want. So we have, to do more to get people to accept that this can't be tolerated anymore. I would not say that it is obvious. I wouldn't say that. I am thinking that we are getting there because of the pain that is being inflicted. And of course, truth be said, particularly Rick G is doing a very good job of pinpointing what are not the right things, and also the Linda Mwananchi group of Sifuna, Babu, and Orengo, Otsotsi, etc., etc. There is that, but it's not enough to simply think that if you have all those rallies, you are reaching people to change them fundamentally. That is what happens on top. But you have to do other things, smaller meetings, town halls, so that you can get the message to people that where we have reached, we cannot allow ourselves to continue in that path. And of course, I remember once saying that Ruto also is very good. President Ruto is also very good in terms of looking for numbers in elections, whichever way. From Youth for Kano 1992, 1997, when Moi thought he was not going to win, he was one of the leaders to help him win, even as a young guy. Come 2005 referendum, he was very, very, very pivotal in terms of delivering that referendum to particularly ODM. He did a lot of work, paid work for Uhuru in the two elections. He did a lot of work for himself in 2022. So he's not somebody to just think that, you are going to make a lot of speeches and get him down. So a lot of concerted work, therefore, is needed, and at the very grassroots level, not the touch and go rallies. They're good, they mobilize people, but unfortunately also in our country, the United Opposition has a rally, people come. Linda Ground has a rally, people come. Linda Mwananchi has a rally, of course a lot of people come. But so that is not decisive. So you have to do much more than that, so that you can really mobilize people for a huge push.
There has been a call that if you have a government in place that's not delivering for the people, or that you have many different people saying that they are the ones, that what must happen, looking into Kenya's situation at the moment, is that all of these who are in the would-be opposition must come together at all levels, must come together to speak, number one, truth to power. Secondly, must say that we are the ones who are going to deliver this salvation to Kenya. And this is the person who's going to lead the pack. Do you think that's necessary for it to be done at the moment?
Well, I think that thinking is coming out of a desperation in terms of a realization that the president is a hard nut to crack. Therefore, it's as if a 2002 moment is required when all the opposition came together and were able to, through Kibaki, get about 2/3 of the votes, about over 60% of the votes. So I think there is similar thinking that really, because of where, this government is taking the people, it must be replaced. And for it to be replaced, that everybody who is not in government must come together. So there is that kind of thinking. And of course, we have seen previously people coming together at the very end, like whether it is Azimio, whether it was even the torture of Kibaki at the very, very, very end. Because sometimes they are also careful not to indicate who will be put forward, which people, president, deputy president, will be put forward, and then they are destabilized. So there's that fact again. But I think it is also important that these people who are going to come together begin to clearly say what is it that they'll do differently, and how will that be done. Whether it is where will the money be, where will be the people who can drive that, so that there is credibility. Because if there isn't that credibility, then some people, especially younger people, will say maybe we shouldn't vote, and that kind of stuff. So I think that's the bigger, for me, the bigger thing of what do they stand for, so that people can be convinced that this is really different. It's going to be different. And of course, some of the young people are beginning to think that there must be a content of young people in that leadership. If there isn't that content, they're thinking that it is business as usual. So again, that has to be looked at. But I'm thinking that I can't criticize them for not being able to say who will be the leader, because they're being baited to say it is, so and so, and then after that they are disorganized.
Right.
So I think they're being tactful. But the question is, like, when Akina Maraga, Akina Omtata, Akina Boni Mwangi, when those guys, came to the fore, it was thought that these are the people with a progressive agenda. But it didn't seem to gel. And then, somehow overtaken by this Linda Mwananchi group and so on. So maybe also those guys should come together with this Linda Mwananchi group and see what kind of formation is there, and continue to kind of agitate for the change that they think Kenyans deserve. Also the other guys, the alternative government or united opposition, also to do their job. Because this system, you can't approach it in a unilateral way. You have to approach it in different ways, because it is a complex thing. Ruto has the money. He has the government. He has all those chiefs. They are told, we want so many people, through your village elders. And the village elders are supposed to be paid some money now every month. IBC, again, he has an upper hand there, even, trying to influence the Supreme Court. So you can see that he's a guy who thinks, lives, dreams how to win the election.
So, of course, we've got minutes to go, Prof. But this being a conversation, far be it from us not to ask the question on this elephant that's sitting in the room, that you've set the bar pretty high in terms of leadership, and you don't take any of that credit. You say you did the job that was required of you when you were governor in Makueni, and we can't forget that, you know, at some point when there was a little bit of noise, you said, okay, guys, shut the whole thing down. Let's go back to the ballot. And people resoundingly chose you again. Then you went on to do your job. And many argue that the current governor of Makueni is actually walking in the shoes that you left, because, you know, he continues to do a stellar job. But then the question that for most people is that, would you not come back in whatever capacity and show Kenyans, show other folks how it's done?
Yeah, you know, I'm very comfortable as a teacher in 2 universities. But that does not really mean that, you know, people do come back from retirement when it is necessary. And if the situation continues to be very dire, and, you know, one was asked, why don't you lend a hand in 1 or 2 things? I don't think one will be in a position to say no. What I don't like is, you know, sometimes people pump your head and say, you know, you are presidential material, you are this and that, and it gets into your head, and therefore you come and you say, now I have come as a whatever. I am happy to serve in any capacity. And although I am in the classroom now, if, you know, the opportunity arose because, you know, one was asked to do now more than teaching, I have come to a position where I think I might not be able to say no, but it would be because one wants to serve, not necessarily because one wants a particular position. And I made a joke in one of the vernacular radios that to make sure that, you know, Makueni is good, I don't mind even being a nominated MCA.
Okay.
So, of course, some people have said, why can't you be a senator in Makueni? I'm not sure about that. So I think at the national level, if there was an opportunity to be of service, and it is to work with people who are like-minded, people who really care for the citizens of Kenya, maybe now I would seriously reconsider it.
Okay. There you go. There's your answer. And that would be a great cap to all of the things that we've talked about. See what you're seeing. See what you've seen. See what you should see in the future. He wouldn't mind, folks, perhaps to come and deliver it how it should be done. Professor Kivutha Kibwana, thank you for joining us this morning, having this conversation on the state of the nation. It won't be the last one. More are necessary in the near future. But thank you for doing this with us this morning.
Asante sana, and I wish you a very good day. And I wish Kenyans also a good day, although it is not a good day.
Yeah, indeed. Conversations continue. We go to the streets after 9. Good morning.